She does good. So she's going to do our brown bag lunch, and she's calling it very treasured. So it'll be a lot of fun, and we're hoping for a lot of input, right, Nancy? And I'm going to be taking notes because this is a fact-finding venture.
Is Don here?
No, I don't know if
He
he's...
said he would be. Oh, well.
Oh, well, thank you.
Can you take notes for all the...
I can take notes.
Okay. So, this is just a fun topic for me. I only spent about 2 weeks on it as opposed to the last 3 I did were like 4 or 5 months. But this isn't necessarily a passion project, but it was just kind of a fun little thing. So, I don't know if any of you saw Bonnie's presentation, oh gosh, on like 2016. But they were digging up the streetscape, and they called her to come say, oh my gosh, what did we find? And she went over, she said, oh yeah, there were stores down underneath in the basements. But they didn't know, oops, yeah, my computer, no, there we go. Anyway, she took a bunch of pictures, and I have some of them on the front and some of them on the end. But I'm just going to keep you in suspense about the end. So, what did they find here? Well, I guess. All right. So, as they were digging, she came down, and they'd call her, and she'd come down and take pictures, and then they'd call her again, and she'd come down and take pictures. And so she has pictures of the... Oh well. She has pictures of the east side of North Main Street here. This is U.S. Cellular to Sweet Things Bakery. So here is the backhoe actually digging things out, and they found a door that looks like it was boarded up with 2 windows. This still works. Honestly, this was working before. So you got this door here. Okay, so what it is there were underground stores or retail places or barbers. A lot of them are barbers and beauty shops and those kind of things, and plumbers. The everyday things were on the main drag, and then up on the second floors were doctors and lawyers and dentists and printers and service industries more. But the retail was on the main, and then underneath was more service. And these are just more pictures. You can see where there was a boarded up door. And here's boarded up, I think a door and some windows maybe. And it could have been wood in there, we really don't know. Another view. A lot of repeats here in this little bit of a section. And so here, this goes up the street. I think maybe it's on the other side of the street, maybe? Where'd Bonnie sit?
I'm right here, but I don't even know.
These are your pictures. And there was lots of junk in them, and lots of old parts, I suppose, that were thrown in when they put I-beams above and put the new sidewalks in. And they just covered it all up. Here's a different one. And this is going down Platt Street. You can see the VFW right here. There, but that stairs was not there in the 1800s. Okay, so this is the northwest corner of Main and Platt, where the Mexican restaurant is. And this, of course, started out to be a bank, and then it was a Harris Opera House, and then it was Carson Pharmacy with maybe a few other things thrown in there. Am I generally right about that? By the time I got to the end of this, I don't even know if some of these slides were in order. And But anyway, here's the I-beams that had been put over, well maybe, yeah, they're I-beams. You can see that right there. And then they must have put a board on top of some kind, and then they poured sidewalk over top, rather than filling them in. So when they did the streetscape this time, they filled them all in, which is a little bit sad. Bonnie begged them to keep some of them open so we could do something kind of fun. I mean, I see Halloween down there, but Bonnie sees a store. But you were saying that there was a town around that actually had restored a couple of these and did tours. But when I tried to search for that, I didn't find anything, and then you didn't find
I
anything.
wonder if anybody remembers.
Does anybody remember that?
It was either Monticello or Manchester, one of the towns around here. And they found the same thing underneath. And they kept theirs and made it into kind of a little tourism thing. And there was a big magazine article about it, and now I can't find it either. So I don't know whether they still have it, because that would have been 10 years ago. But
Yeah.
we can't find it now, but.
I could see Tipton or Monticello doing that. I don't know the Manchester community very well.
Right. And that's Bell Tubbs and Pat Gent. They went with me that day.
It's right there.
Nancy, can I ask a quick question while you've got that picture up? How did people get down there? I mean, how was it laid out that?
That is where the mystery comes.
Oh, is that what
Stay
we're?
tuned.
Okay,
This is just the start. Okay, and some more views. And if I'm going too fast, tell me to stop, because sometimes it's hard to take everything in. And there they are standing. And this is just the inside of one of the basements. I tried to lighten and sharpen them up. And now, of course, there's just junk down there pretty much. And this is going west along Platte. Oh, see, I have them mixed up. Okay, so Maquoketa's downtown stairways, how did they get there? Well, first of all, they were mostly outside stairways. I think the one in the Boy Theaters was inside, but at one point it could have been outside. I bet, oh, it would have been. We'll show you that. So this was kind of like Where's Waldo? I got to thinking, can I find any examples of these stairways? So one thing nice about pictures these days is you can zoom way in to find them. So I went on this Where's Waldo thing for probably a day or two, on and off. Okay, so here's the first one. This is Maquoketa's Cornet Band, the corner of South Main and Pleasant. And if you look where the arrow is, this would be where Ringlips Hardware was, right here. And so this is a stairway going down, and this is a stairway going up. So this one probably would have gone up to the balcony up there to the doctor or dentist. I should have found that ad. Well, anyway, that's for later too. So there's the ones going down. And this is the one that I remember from when I was a little girl. Now the stores were pretty much gone by 1906, 1900s. They were in the late 1800s because so many people would come to Maquoketa, and the place to be was on Main Street, okay? Because people walked or they rode horses or drove horses, and they couldn't go running out to Fairway. They had to be within walking distance. So that is why the 3 layers. So this is looking from Mitchell Mastery down, and right here are those stairs at the end of Ringlips Hardware there. I just remember that being Ringlips when I was a kid. And that to me was the most old-fashioned hardware store I'd seen. And it just was like stepping back into time. So down and up. And this was a doctor or dentist, maybe both, up on the top. Darn it, so used to working with it. Okay, now this is showing some stairs that go up. But that looks like maybe it could be a hitching post or it could be steps. I don't know.
So that's Jay Goodno's Tavern, I think.
Oh, that's another thing. There should have been taverns downstairs, but I didn't find any ads for tavern in the basement.
But that's Jay Goodno's Brick Hotel, right on the corner in the stone store across the street where eventually the bank and Make a Splash is now.
So this is Make a Splash. That's what I thought it was.
Right.
But these are the steps that go up. Okay, then I'm not sure the view of this one either. But I'm wondering if this is steps as well.
That's all.
That is really a zoom in. And I think this looks like going from the Hearst Hotel down. Does that, maybe that says Grand. I wanted to make it say garage. It says garage.
It says garage.
And I remember down that street, there was a little white building that had garage on the front of it. Now that was when I was a little older.
That's it.
I'm so used to using this that, okay, so here I was wondering if there was another one right here.
Absolutely.
These are just really zoomed in. I mean, it really was I Spy. If you ever read those. And then here I thought I saw another one. These are all on Main Street. And this was the cover. Now this is the Orpheum Theater, and that was where Voice were. Okay.
Upstairs.
Yeah.
Voice, it was upstairs, the Orpheum Theater. Okay,
No,
but it was, which one was it?
the Orpheum Theater was not upstairs, it was on the ground level. So where your arrow is pointing is where Dennis had his video rental place.
yeah.
And then his theater started next to that, but then they expanded in the back
Okay,
when he put in the triplex.
but it's the Orpheum.
Orpheum.
Okay, because I was thinking the Orpheum was across the street, kind of where Fairway was. Was there another one? And I thought I paid attention. Okay, so this is the same building, only this is when it was the Orpheum Theater,
Yes.
because if you go back here, you don't have the arches. But as you go forward, you have the iron fence going into the theater, and then you have the pipes for the rails.
That's the same building.
And this is the same building again, but they must have put ivy up there or something because it looks very grand. And it's got the same railings. Okay, so here is Carson's again on the other side. This was when it was the bank, founded in 1876. But here are the steps going down there. And in my head, I think I can remember them. I don't know. But I'll tell you why I remember the Ringlip Hardware ones. It's because Maquoketa used to always have fun nights on Saturday night, and then it went to Friday night. Okay? Well, when I was little, it was Friday night. And the Burmall family lived in Maquoketa. And so they always went to town on Saturday night and then on Friday nights. Well, Mom got married, and on Friday night she was getting busy, ready to go to town. And she said the Corneliuses didn't do that. So she went by herself, and eventually she took us, you know, as she gets past that newlywed stage. So she left Dad behind. But it's just funny because Chris married Chuck, and she got ready to go to town because when it rained on a rainy day, the Walters would go to town and do the shopping or whatever. So she got all ready to go to town, and Chuck says, "Why are you going to town? We fix fence on rainy days." So apparently, everything was probably confined to Andrew though, because Andrew was pretty bustling then too. But anyway, that's the story. And so she would stop and talk to people on the street. And one time it was by Ringlip's Hardware, and she kept telling us not to go down there. But boy, that was really boring when she stood there and talked.
Nancy? So ladies in the window up there, is this the picture, because you've blown them up and they got so much better, is this the picture of when the telephone, because the telephone office was up there and all the switchboard operators?
It could be. Is it the right timing, about 1900?
I think it might be. We
We'll have to ask
had
Sue.
telephones by then.
It's amazing what you can blow pictures up to see anymore, especially if you sharpen
This is
them.
great.
So used to that. Okay, so what businesses were downtown? So I went through some old directories and ads, and the addresses were pretty vague. Okay, they used street numbers, but not really. Like this one is in the number 4 exchange block, and I didn't have time to look up which was which. And the exchange block, I think, was not a block like we think. I think it was just a big building with lots of stores and offices and things in, am I right?
Right.
And if you look up at the top, you'll see them, but I'm not sure which is which. A topic for another day. Okay, so the city laundry, this was let at 203 South Main downstairs, and I'm not sure what that was under. But it says work left at Old McCaffrey's will receive prompt attention. Old McCaffrey's is a cigar store. So maybe the men left their stuff there, I don't know.
That'd be across from the brewery, because we're 110 South Main. So it'd be across the street from the brewery.
Well, one would think, but it's not, because they've changed the numbers, I think. This is actually above, in Sue Mayberry's Farmer's Creek Antique Shop.
Oh,
It was on the first floor there. And then underneath is where she has her wine cellar.
On that side of the street.
So, but there was a cigar store there. There were several cigar stores. So, tobaccos, smokers, sundries,
That makes sense.
and whatever that says. So 109 South Main, there's a real address.
Isn't that Jim and Sue Mayberry's building?
McCaffrey's is,
Right.
yeah. But she was thinking 109 was across the street from the brewery.
Because now that's even side of the street.
Right.
That would have been a hard, so.
But I think there was a cigar store there. I think there was a cigar manufacturer.
There's a mural on the back side.
Right, I'll come to that. Yeah, it's a beautiful mural. So this one I just thought was kind of fun. This is Tinker Brothers, and I think it was more down the street by the Voight Theater somewhere in there. I found that on an old fire map. But they're watchmakers, jewelers, watches, clocks, silverware, and then wallpaper, sheet music, and bicycles and sporting goods. So this was Tinker Brothers, and there is no address on this one. But with that was Mrs. H.D. Tinker, who had her millinery and fancy dry goods store. So the wives had their stores with their husbands too. I just thought that was interesting. And it's Mrs. H.D. Tinker. So underneath the Harris Opera House, which was on the corner there, Carson's Corner, the Mexican restaurant, there was actually a piano and organ store underneath. Yeah, I know, but there were also plumbers down there and a boiler maker, all that heavy stuff. So they did have lifts in there and elevators. But we all know how big those old upright pianos were and how heavy. There's one in my mother's basement that went in before the house was built, and it's not ever coming out unless I take it apart. And then I have a pump organ myself, and I can slide that if I'm doing it right, but that's heavy too. So anyway, it's under the Harris Opera House, right here.
but,
Hmm?
but,
But
the
what?
Harris Opera House was only on the second floor,
Okay, that's the second floor you were talking about.
the Opera House.
Yeah, so that was on the second floor. Oh, so it was on the ground floor.
So this was on the ground floor,
Well, darn.
and there was a barber shop
But anyway, they would still have to move them.
on it. You're right.
Yeah, but then I kind of thought maybe that might be the case, because here,
Yeah.
this is the blown up one of the other one, of that ad, and it says HF French, and this would be the music store here.
Right.
I'm not sure what was over here.
Many things.
And there's your steps going up.
Is that building still?
It's a Mexican restaurant.
It's the Mexican restaurant. Now, so many of these buildings have apartments upstairs, or just worn out storage.
Well, that looks really different. For the Mexican restaurant, I always look for that corner door, and I don't see that there.
Did the bank come after the Opera House?
The bank, yes.
Okay, I think the bank probably put that in, would be my guess. So here you have, there the address is just J.C. Harris. And, yeah, I got everything there. Yeah, and then I enlarged it even more, so you got a nice view of the steps going up. Now, Chantaller's Law Office used to be up in here when I was a kid, a child, and I remember going up those steps into that law office. Because they must have been doing something. It was Grandpa and Grandma and Mom and Dad, and we 3 kids had to sit in the waiting room. That was really boring too. I was under 10. On this I just threw in there because I thought it was fun. But they actually had business writing. Spencerian business writing. This was in Davenport, but it was a course and you get a certificate and the whole thing. I thought they learned that beautiful writing in school. Well, maybe not.
The Palmer method, they did.
This is the Palmer method?
No, that's what they learned in school.
Oh. Anyway, I just threw that in there just because I thought it was interesting.
This is more like calligraphy.
Yes, it is, but if you look back at all those old certificates and if you're going through all the old records of marriage records and immigration records, they have this beautiful handwriting. And here's just some listings in the city directory. They listed retired people, they listed just anybody, and you got a story?
Now I know the name of the barber shop that was underneath, because see, barber shop, basement of 101 South Main, Miller E.
Yeah, this is the one that Bonnie remembers. You remember that? It was there much later then.
Okay.
So this was under the Carson Pharmacy. Okay. And then this is barbershop, basement 142 South Main, and then where he lived. And then, let's see, Miss Nancy, no, tenant houses. They had a lot of addresses that were tenant houses. I think it was kind of around Eliza Street and around in that area. North Eliza, North.
There were a lot of duplexes.
But they
In
used to
those
just
days.
rent out rooms to
Yes.
people.
Oh, so they called them tenant houses because they rented rooms. Thank you. I had that, all I could think of was the South for some reason, or migrants. And then of course this our city laundry, basement 203 South Main. And then of course the most important, this was an ad in the city directory, barbershop and bathroom, Carter Block basement. Now, there were lots of livery stables, so I would imagine that a bathroom was not a big deal to men. Think about that for a little bit. But then it says, it's the parlor shop of the city. I don't know what that
Don't you
means.
think it was actually a bath house? For
No.
guys to go to take a bath?
You think it was a bath house?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Like for Western, not a bath, yeah. That they would go there to take a bath because they didn't have any place to take one.
That's what it was.
Get a shave and a haircut and a bath all at one time.
So that would be the parlor. And was that for men, women, or?
Probably just a man.
Did not know that.
So over in the other museum, in our barber shop display, there is a tin bathtub.
From
Comes out
there?
of one of those places. And there is a shower. And it's interesting because it's a round pail with one flat side that they would fill with water and hang on the wall, so it'd hang up against the wall. And then a rubber hose, and that was the shower. You would take a shower.
That's
That's
another
all
thing
it's
to
been
add.
in
I gotta
building.
get a picture of that.
That's at the other building.
What she said is they have it in the barber shop over at the main museum, the tub and the whole system for shower. Okay. Well, I thought that they were just telling women where the restrooms were. Like I said, men didn't worry about that. There's also dirt streets, you know? I grew up on a farm. But men are men no matter where they live. Right, men? I apologize. So Sue, last Tuesday, Sue says, do you want to see the winery, or the wine, it's a wine cellar, it was a wine bar. And they did it up so nicely, and I said, yes, I'd love to go down there and look at it in a different way. So this is the outside. This is the Old McCafferty mural they had done on the back of what used to be Coast to Coast. It's Steve and Julie Kinraid owned that, and it's now a business plaza. And they didn't paint over it, which they were really happy about, but it's just the neatest mural. Over here on the, they actually put their S, L, and T for their 3 children, Sarah, Logan, and Thomas. So that's just kind of a neat little personalization thing. And here, of course, is the ad. Now this was actually in the top floor of the wine bar. I'm gonna call it a wine bar. So it was above, and then I don't know what was below, maybe. Okay, so this was a coal chute. This is on the back, and we came down the steps, and I kind of arranged them from the back to the front. And so this was a coal chute, and next to it on the wall was a huge, ugly US Telecom or some type of a telephone electrical box that was really big. And they asked to have it moved. Well, you know how that goes. They messed around for a year and blah, 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 and no, we can't do that, and all that kind of thing. Well, then one time Jim was working in there, and he accidentally snipped a wire. And so the block didn't have power or telephones or whatever it was, I don't remember. So they came and they said, can we move it now? And they said, yeah, we can move it. And fortunately, they looked out the window at the right time. They came with a big backhoe to dig down in there, and they were going to take this coal chute out. And Sue and Jim says, no, you're not going to do that. Well, yes, we are. She says, it's here. You can get it out here. Well, we can't use a backhoe. We'd have to dig. She says, yeah. Like, how was that her problem? But I don't know, sometimes these companies get pretty territorial, and I don't think there was an easement. They said they had an easement, but if there wasn't one in the contract, there's no easement. So, anyway, coal chute with a light by it. This is, they built in front here, it's different stone on the front there, but it was actually a boarded up door that she thought went between the 2 stores underneath the coast. I still call it Coast to Coast, but there's a lot of them after that. I guess I'm really dating myself. And as you cut, and more towards the front, that says no loafing here. And the no is really faint right there. So there must have been an issue there. So something was down here that caused people to come in and just loaf. So at the front, where the loafing area is right here, and this was a window, and I think I've got a better picture that they put their chalkboard menu board in. So in this case, the joists go this way, they go east-west, and then you get back a little bit, and they go north-south, all the way to the back. So she's wondering if there was something down, maybe it was a balcony or something in the store above, and you could look down and then they wanted to hang down there. I don't know. But she always thought that was interesting, and I didn't find anything. I'm not even sure where I would go. So this is the window in that corner. The loafing area is over here. And so there's the window. And I was going to draw a picture of it, and I didn't get that done. Okay. Old habits. So over here is the window. And she thinks there might have been a window here as well. And this looked like a door, because behind it you can see where they put boards behind it to board that up. And she thinks that the steps came down like this on the other side of the windows. Because a lot of these stores had windows just like a storefront would be on another floor. Okay? So it's a guess. Okay, so that takes us through the wine cellar. So this comes to the Voy Theater, and this was an article in the paper in 2016, was it? I think that was the date on it. And Dennis knew about all this. But when they started digging things up, he showed it to Bonnie, and there were some people in here that you'll see. So here is the Voy Theater, and next to it is Expressions Hair Salon.
And that's your building that you had on the front.
Right, these two together, but it was much higher, and I don't think there's a slanted roof on the top of this one anymore either. I did not look. Might be there, but, okay, so the Voy Theater. So these steps are inside, but you got cement here and cement here. So at one point, I think they were outside, because I took that picture out. But you remember the Harris Theater with the two going down to the plumbers? There were the railings there. And so I think they were originally on the outside, and then the store may have been built out to be on the outside of those stairs. Does that make sense? There's just no stories. This is it was wallpapered and everything. This went down to a plumber's shop to start out with. And tell me what this is, Bonnie.
It's Doug Melvold.
That we know.
So this is one of the rooms that was downstairs under the Voy Theater, where the wallpaper was, I think, was probably a beauty shop or something like that. But it was interesting because here you are downstairs, and the only window is out to these staircases coming down, but yet on the inner walls there's windows in the walls, so you can look through the wall into the next room, just like you'd have a window in a house. So it was very strange, but there was flocked wallpaper, there was some very fancy stuff in part of it. And you can see that wall was all lath and plaster. So, I mean, they were really well done, some of them, the businesses down there.
That must just be broken out wall.
Right.
And this is another something.
Yeah, we didn't know what.
That almost sounds like a little indoor mini mall.
You know,
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what it was. And those
well,
windows
look
went nowhere.
here. It could have been, because that looks like a wall, and then you got another space over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, that's the thing about all of this. There are no stories, nobody's alive that remembers them. I don't know of anybody taking any pictures. If you ever come across some,
Oh.
send us a copy. Yeah, they're just kind of mysteries. And there's a window.
In a downstairs, in a basement that goes to nowhere. It's just interesting that they put windows in.
So I don't know what they were looking here, but this is another bricked up window, and it looks like there might have been another one over here. And this would be underneath the archways, I think, which are right here. You said there were 3 archways here. They must have mimicked the upstairs Harris Opera Theater.
Orpheum.
Orpheum, sorry. Okay, so there's that, and they're brick and they're beautiful. And it's shiny here, so another window, another window. And this looks like a floor grate.
But it was in the ceiling.
This was in the ceiling.
Depends on your point of view.
It does.
Well, it's the same,
Yeah.
it's the same angle, kind of. Anyway, it's one of those beautiful registers. I don't know, you got me on this one.
We did.
There's a door there, just more open spaces. And that's zoomed in a little more. Nice picture of Doug's head. And then this, I'm wondering if this was a coal chute?
It might have been, because there's a big furnace down there, that steam furnace that heated all the building, or all the things up above.
Yeah, yeah. I know that in our old house, we had the old wood furnace with a coal furnace with it, and we had a chute that it came in, and then we shoveled it, or Dad did, we were little.
So I do remember that this thing that they attempted to brick up. So if you're, where the Voy Theater is now, looking toward the Hearst Hotel, there was a tunnel or a walkway that went to the Hearst Hotel, and they had blocked it up, so we could look in there and see this tunnel.
So the tunnel was actually here?
It went through to the Hearst Hotel. So when you say
and
tunnel.
it goes up higher?
Yeah.
So you
it
would
was
have steps kind
a
of up into
walkway,
it?
a passageway, a hallway. So when you say
Underground.
tunnel, that sounds, yeah,
Was it
A
above
walkway.
ground? It was above ground or underground?
underground.
Ooh. I tried to get Bonnie I said, this would be a great Halloween story. No rumors of ghosts down there. And this is more of the basement, you know. Leighton Hepker and Dennis were both city officials, mayors. But it's remarkably clean, really, compared to those other ones. This was in the boiler plumber shop. These are instructions of how to install a boiler. And these are operating and safety instructions. And there's a boiler, just like those.
Just one page instead of 30.
You're right.
Well,
In
this
only
is
one
probably,
language.
this would be the boiler
Yes,
that,
right.
that heated the whole thing.
It's huge. It's still there.
More of the basement,
This is below the
Pipes.
boy, right?
yes.
Right, along that
And
area.
this is, but then it also connects underneath the Expressions Beauty Salon too, right? Okay, so it's more than just, and who knows, those basements could have been combined later on, but probably not.
Back in that day, that had to be very dimly lit to get light down in there.
I would guess you're probably right, because they didn't even have electricity, so it would have been lanterns.
Yeah,
On the flip side, they were used to that.
true, they didn't know any different, right?
Yeah, but how would you,
Boy, it would be so dim.
keeping your inventory straight and putting things, I don't know if they put any things together. Did they have a freight elevator lift here?
There were, so the rubble that you saw back in one of the pictures, there was kind of a wheel with, that was from a freight elevator, they told us.
Back in the
The one that was
beginning?
near the one that was near the corner of the Mexican restaurant out in front.
I might have taken that slide out. Let's put it back in. And this is a ledge for some reason, maybe a footing type of thing. It looks structural, it doesn't look decorative at all. Oh, and I don't have a really cool ending slide. So that is what we have. I mean, there's no little exit question or anything like that for school. And I was gonna tell you at the beginning, if I got done early, you could be on your phones. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Well, you're talking about the telephone thing, and I have a picture on my phone if anybody wants to see it, but the telephone lines go through the brewery now only, I think. And like when Tiny Pond, they live above there, and they were doing some remodeling, and they cut some wires, and pretty soon Make a Splash didn't have internet, and so they call us up, and we gotta get in, and
That was the problem. They must have moved one down there. You have another,
yeah, it's just a mass of wires.
and you really don't like it there.
Well, it's in the basement, but
Yeah.
it's not
Well,
terribly inconvenient, but
they accused him of doing it on purpose, and I don't think they didn't. Anyway, those utility
well,
companies can get to be
department
something.
store, so I don't know
Roger.
what's down there.
When you talked about ringlets earlier, when I think of ringlets, I always think of Ben Jacobson.
Yes.
He was the mayor for a long time, but the store had all these kind of cupboards, and you went in there and you knew where everything was.
Yeah, this store, how many of you remember going into Ringlets? Yeah. What I remember is they had this dark wooden floor, and then they had the checkout counter, which was a little lower. And I don't remember how tall he was, but it was a big wide counter, and he always wrapped your purchase in paper and pulled the string down to wrap it from the ceiling. I mean, this was a really old, beautiful, I thought it was a really cool store to be in. And I think they had did they have a meat counter in there? I don't know, it was hardware.
I thought it was hardware.
I don't know, I remember
Okay.
seeing
No.
some pictures and they must have been in my grandmother's things.
Right, no means no.
No, I know. Maybe jerky. What?
So I was just gonna say, one of the things that helped us kind of understand some of the underground things where the Voy Theater going to the Hearst Hotel was, that one of the advertisements in the Hearst Hotel, back then was called the Delmonico. It was one of the finest hotels around. And one of their advertisements was that if you stayed there, you could park your horse and carriage in the livery station behind on Olive Street. And then through this passageway, tunnel, hallway that we talked about, you could actually go from there, leave your carriage and go underground into the Hearst Hotel so that you didn't have to go out in inclement weather. The rain, the snow, the whatever, you could go underground the whole way. And so that was also part of that system, under the sidewalks.
There must have been quite a maze down there. And then you start thinking about, well, what did they do with those tunnels in 1923, you know, during the Prohibition? I mean, they would have been ready to go for those of you that had bootlegger ancestors. Yeah.
The Decker house has the basement, you know, down there where they have the bar and everything. Do you think that's part of that time period too?
I would say so. The Buffalo Room? I would guess so too, because I don't know if they changed the floor, but they did have that stone floor on the bottom.
Still there?
They didn't cover that up? Oh, good. Well, he wouldn't have, would he? So, yeah.
But that still
I'm
has
guessing so,
the
too.
outside downstairs entrance.
Yes, that's
Still.
how you can go in.
Yeah, it's still there.
That was such an obvious one to get a picture of. I'll have to go do that yet. Yeah, yeah. That might be the only remaining one.
Might be.
Okay. Any other stories or remember? Yes.
Well, I wanted to ask a question. You know, I've only lived here 54 years. However,
Oh, that's
there's lots I don't know.
Well, according to Bob Osterhaus, you're still a newbie because he's
I
been
think
here
I'll probably
60.
always be an outlander.
Yeah, that's what he always says too.
Yeah. So in any event, when they redid the street, what did they do? Just fill those tunnels with junk, with dirt, and all kinds of stuff?
They did. They just filled them up and made them go away.
Yeah.
I tried hard, I did. I tried to get them to leave one section, the most interesting section with the brick arched walls and things, so that we would always know what it was, but they wouldn't. I also tried, there was a wonderful pile of rubble outside of one, and there were all kinds of metal gears and really interesting things, and they promised that they would save those for us, but they didn't. And so, but they filled everything in. But I just know there's this one town out there where they saved it. And maybe they only saved it for a few years and they filled it in. But they would call us, and whoever was at the Historical Society at that time, that's why you saw Pat Jett and Belle Tubbs in the one picture, they would call and we would just lock the door and go downtown. And we'd pull up and they would allow us to walk along and take whatever pictures we could. They'd give us 5 minutes. They timed it, Frank Else. They would time it, and then he would blow his little whistle, and we had to get out of there, and the machines would all start up again, and they would just be filling them with crushed rock.
You can see Bonnie
fill
just
them
ahead
all
of the rock.
Climb over the rubble, and,
Well,
but it's
and
interesting.
if you've ever talked to Bonnie, I'm really surprised they didn't leave that there for you, because she's really hard to say no to.
Nancy, I have a question, because, you know, the Legion used to have the bar there next to the old Hamilton. Are those steps maybe still underneath that piece that's there, but they're using for a window or not?
I don't know, they filled everything they could.
Yeah, I didn't know, because then they built that little part out.
Yeah.
I don't think they did, because
I think
if
they
they
got
had filled it
everything
in, they would have taken off the cover, and it
Well,
would
that's
have.
what I wonder, I don't know.
Well, but those, I didn't find those steps in any of the old pictures, and I have plenty of pictures of that building.
Steve Moorhead would know, because he owns the building.
Yeah,
And there's still a vault in the basement of that building, the bank vault's still down there.
well, and there was a bar down there too. Could it have been a bar in the old days too? I don't know.
I think just the Legion turned it into a bar when they had it. I
Could
don't-
be.
Yeah.
Well, there had to be bars down there. There had to be bars down there because you go down there and hide probably. But I was at the Y and I was talking about it and somebody came in and he says, oh yeah. He was doing something up at Cincinnati Mounds and he had to run some pipes, he was a pipe fitter or something. Anyway, there were tunnels under there and he had to run something beside it. But he said there are still some old bars in Dubuque downtown in the Millwork District where they've been redoing. And you can go down there. And those were mainly for men getting off of third shift at the factory, and of course, you're not ready to go to bed, and so they would stop in there underground after the legal bar hours, and they'd go out after work. So there are still some in Dubuque. But I would guess all the towns around here would have a lot of these types of things, because with a horse and buggy, you just didn't go very far in an hour. You know, so going to town was a big deal, and you had to be able to do everything, and you had to be able to walk to do everything.
I'm just curious to know, the Snow White Pharmacy, was that where the Mexican restaurant is on that corner?
That was Carson's. I remember the Snow White Pharmacy because when we got, I got so many stories. When we built our house, Mom spent in the back of Snow White getting just the right color of stain for her woodwork. It was mixing three things. But yes, that is actually part of the Maquoketa art experience, right?
Yes.
Bob Osterhaus,
No.
no it isn't?
It's down, it's further north than that.
It's further north, so what would be in there? It was the brewery, and then Graham's, and then was that Snow White? So it'd be, he's explaining. So
where Osterhaus, where art experience is, was Hancher's Drugstore.
Hancher's,
And Stack and Luckish Drugstore.
Stack and Luckish, so there were three drugstores,
And
right?
there were
Hinckley's.
3 drugstors in a row, and then the Ben Franklin store, or the Schultz store. not
Schultz's.
the big stuff.
How many of you remember Schultz's?
It was here in '85.
It had that wood floor and it had that candy.
The candy
Candy
counter right inside the
counter.
door.
Oh, we used to just stand there and look at it.
Yeah.
Mom? No. And then back one aisle, they had some toys, you know, so that's where we headed.
Where was the Green Mill out there?
The Green Mill was part of, is that part of the Maquoketa? So it was 2 drugstores, the Green Mill, and 3 drugstores in the Green
Green
Mill.
Mill and Schultz's.
Schultz's.
Schultz's, 3 drugstores, and the Green Mill.
So it was 5. 5,
And then the bank.
and the bank. Who said that? Yes?
There's Carson's Drugstore on the corner, then there was Snow White, Hancher's, and
Hinckley's.
Hinckley's.
Because that was where Bob Osterhaus started out. He would have been a good person to consult on this too.
Western Auto was way on the south end where Coast to Coast was.
Right.
Western Auto was down there on the end, next to the wine cellar.
It was in 2 different places, as I remember.
And that's one place where you came in the door and you couldn't go down in the basement, is where the toys were.
She said that when, say the name again?
Western Auto.
Western Auto was down there on the end, next to the wine cellar where the office building is now. No, it was there first. But I remember Western Auto being kind of there by where Keepsake Portrait is. That's where I remember it.
These stores moved so much.
But they really, I mean, how many of you go to Galena every couple of years and the stores there move? Those stores that are just packed with stuff and they manage to move it? So, yeah, these stores moved around too. But somebody was saying that the basement of that store, the basement of that store in the end, where it was on the end by where Coast to Coast was back in the day, you could actually go down the basement, and she said that's where the toys were. So you were quite young then.
When you said before about wrapping your purchases in the brown paper. That's what we always experienced at Lukey Brothers,
Yeah.
with the shoe store in Bellevue too. They did the same thing. He had the big roll, he pulled the string down and wrapped it in brown paper.
Yes, that was kind of the way it was done back
I
then,
think it
wasn't it?
was. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, any other questions or comments? I mean, this is more of a discussion I planned anyway, so this is awesome. So thank you for being a good audience. Great.